Okay, so welcome to this. This is the first short, small introduction to mindfulness at work, and I'm going to keep it down to 15 minutes and be quite strict about that. I'm actually going to give you just a couple of pieces of information. First of all, turn your phones off. Take a nice little 15-minute break from the network. If you can take your battery out of your phone, do that. If you can turn your phone off so that it won't remind you of something, do that too, so it's sort of completely off. Also, you're going to need a pad and a pen, only very briefly, just so you can note a couple of things down, because I'm going to kind of send you off into your own research, because I always say to my students, never take it from me. I always say just, go off and find out, and I'll give you a couple of keywords to Google to help you do that. The other thing is that, as you can see, I'm in a kind of noisy office with distractions and, technical problems and, the usual stuff, as I'm sure you are too. Headphones, very useful. I don't actually have a prop here with me today, but usually I have a prop. I have headphones and I show you headphones, and I'll show you that headphones are a very good way to kind of focus, especially because we will do a practice today. So it's a good way to sort of isolate yourself a little bit from the sound. The next thing really is questions. You guys can ask me questions during the webinar, but I won't answer them during the webinar because I'm going to kind of divulge as much information as possible. I do, however, get the questions afterwards, and then I will respond by email to the questions and even share, if I think it's relevant, I'll share it with the group perhaps next time. You can put your hand up too, which I think is really cute. You can sort of virtually stick your hand up. I thought that was amazing. So you can actually stick your hand up. Unfortunately, again, I probably won't be able to respond to that because I've got so much to do in this short space of time, but I thought that was quite cute. You see a little hand go up next to your name. Anyway, so let's just get cracking, all right? What is mindfulness? First of all, let's start there. I get asked that a lot, and my feeling on it is that it has numerous definitions, and in fact numerous methods as well. I'll give you a couple of definitions to kind of get you started today. What you'll find is you will find that you have a definition that suits you to begin with, and then perhaps that definition evolves over time. You'll also find that with your practice as well. You'll find that you'll have a practice that you like to begin with, and that also evolves over time as well. So don't worry if it's sort of doesn't really sit entirely well with you, because you will find out and you will develop your own understanding of what mindfulness is. So I'll give you two really quick definitions. One is the practical application of an ancient technology for the modern world. Okay, the practical application of an ancient technology for the modern world. And the other one is one I heard the other day from a very famous mindfulness instructor. And he said it was an act of love. He just said it's an act of love. So there you go. There's two very different definitions of the same thing. Now, what does it do? What does it do? How does it help? I'll give you two things that are very useful, especially for us in business. It helps you regulate your internal focus. That is, it helps you kind of quieten your monkey mind, your kind of babble, the narrative mind that kind of drags you along all day and has all this sort of rubbish that you have to listen to. It kind of quietens that down and allows you to focus. And once you become good at focusing internally, guess what? You also become very good at focusing externally as well. So that's quite useful. Let's see. I just want to do a couple of things here. There we go. Okay, cool. And the other thing is that it also helps you with being present. Now, the reason that's useful is, especially in business, is if you're ruminating over sunk costs, for example, say you invested something and it went belly up. If you're ruminating over that, it's not very helpful. Being present stops you from doing things like that. It stops you from dwelling in the past. Also, if you have stress about deadlines in the future, being present also by definition, if you're in the present moment, in this moment, right here, right now, with me, in this room, in your room, right now, in this moment, then you can't be stressing about something that's happening in the future, and you can't be ruminating about something that's happening in the past. it's incredibly useful because it makes you, live your life, live your life and also get on with stuff, do stuff. It's actually a very useful thing to do. So that's two kind of benefits, very broad benefits. There's more than that, but that kind of gives you an idea. So that's what is mindfulness and the kind of benefits. And now I'm going to give you a little bit of history, and this is where the notepads are going to come in handy. I want you to write down two of these things. One is a name, and the other is a name of an institution. And this will get you started, but it'll get you started at the very heart, at the very beginning of what we're experiencing in the West. So I'm going to use the keynote here. I'm going to show you Google Jon Kabat-Zinn, and you're also going to Google UMass, and I'll explain why. In 1979, Jon Kabat-Zinn went to the University of Massachusetts, and he said, I want to do this thing called integrative medicine. I want the patients to do the drugs, do the surgery, do the rehab, and meditate. And over the next 35 years, they had 28,000 patients and hundreds of clinicians, physicians, researchers, psychologists, psychiatrists, all manner of white coats. And they literally proved beyond all reasonable doubt that this approach to medicine improved recovery times by twice as much and halved recovery rates. So it was an enormous impact on the medical side. Now, the reason I mention that is because in the West, we tend to have to be beaten over the head with a textbook until we'll accept something. And that is what's happened. We have an enormous weight of medical research, not just from UMass, now from UCLA, from King's in London, from Germany, from Denmark, all over the world. But this approach to medicine, this integrative approach, is enormously beneficial. And guess what? It can be applied at work, and it can be applied to your life. And that's why we do this. That's why we attempt to give you some of the tools and some of the techniques so you can use them at work. So that's enough really of the background. We're going to do it now. That's the main thing. We're going to try and do it. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you to get kind of comfortable. I'm going to ask you to perhaps put your feet so they're flat on the floor. Get your hands so that you can feel the contact. Essentially what you're going to do is you're going to use your physical mechanism as a point of focus. Despite what you might think if you look in the mirror in the morning, you're walking around in a bona fide miracle of life. Whichever way you cut it, it can slice you up, put you under a microscope, throw you off a building, set you on fire. It doesn't, you are a miracle of life. Okay, so you're going to use that. You're going to use your mechanism. So get your hands, put them on your thighs so you can sort of feel that point of contact. And while you can meditate with your eyes open, it's actually much, much easier to do it with your eyes closed. So let your eyes close down and use that act of closing your eyes to actually bring your focus, again, bring it inside yourself, bring it inside the body a little bit. And with your eyes closed, just in your mind's eye, just look in the mirror. Just picture yourself looking in the mirror. Now, look at that person who's looking back at you, all right? So look at that person. Like, who is that person? Who's that person who only wants the absolute best for you? That person who laughs when you laugh, that person who cries when you cry, that person who really only cares about two things, your health and your happiness, and really only those two things. Just think about that for a second. It's actually maybe been quite a long time since you actually did something like this, actually looked at yourself in that way, in that self-aware way. So let's just extend that a little bit and just picture your breath. Breathe in through your nose. The reason we breathe in through our nose is because there's a cell in our nose, a nerve, that connects directly with our heart. So it's the easiest way to become instantly physiologically aware of the breath. So allow your breathing to take over. Your breath is very, very reliable. You'll notice, in fact, that in this seated position, you need very little of it, in fact. You'll notice that your breathing will lengthen and will deepen and will slow. And so just allow it to do so. Allow your breath to lengthen, allow your breath to deepen, and allow your breath to slow. And really focus your attention on the breath. Really observe it entering the boundaries of your body and really observe it exiting the boundaries of your body. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay down a bit of a challenge for you. Now, paradoxically, this challenge is easier to do the less hard you try to do it. I'm going to ask you if you can just focus your whole cognitive awareness, all of your attention, on your breath for 60 seconds. Now, what may happen is you might get distracted by a thought or a memory or a feeling or a pain in the body or a sound inside the room or the urge to giggle or a sound outside the room or anything, an emotion, anything. The trick is this: don't fight the distraction. Allow yourself to be distracted just long enough to note what you're being distracted by, and then once you've noted what you're being distracted by, bring all of your attention and all of your awareness back to the breath. So let's just try that. I'll do it with you. We'll time 60 seconds and just see if you can maintain your focus on your breathing just for 60 seconds. So here we go. I'll time 60 seconds. Here we go. Okay, that's excellent. So look, allow yourself to come back to clock time. You can wiggle your fingers maybe, wiggle your toes. You can come back quick, you can come back slow. There's no real rush here, and let your eyes open. Now there's probably three kinds of people. There's probably those whose minds were impossibly busy, full of thoughts, and they really couldn't gain much control at all, much regulation at all. And there are those of you who probably found that rather simple, actually found it rather easy. And then there are those of you who are somewhere in between. You had some thoughts, they distracted you, you recognized the distraction, and you brought yourself back. Whichever group you fall into, it's really important to have experienced that feeling of seeing your thoughts as somewhat separate from yourself. We're one of the only species on the planet who can do that. And seeing your thoughts as somewhat separate from yourself is incredibly useful. I'll give you a quick example and then I'll sign off because I know you guys have got to go. If someone says I'm angry or someone says I'm stressed, a more accurate description of what they're going through is they're having a thought that's full of stress or a thought that's full of anger. The fact is that there's really only one person who can allow you to become stressed, and there's really only one person who can actually allow you to become angry. Now, that may seem like a long way away at the moment, but that is the basis, and that is a very good application of this ability to view ourselves, to have this much self-awareness. Okay, so I'm going to wrap it up. It's very short and sweet. These 15 minutes really are. Thank you ever so much for joining in. It's very humbling to do this. It's always an honor to do this. So keep any questions coming, and hopefully you'll be around next week and you can catch another 15-minuter. We'll try and put this up online so you can watch it for a week if you didn't get a chance, or if you want to recommend it to a friend, that's fine too. And as I say, do keep any questions coming. And again, thank you very, very much. Okay? So take